And if you're watching us for the first time, welcome to Job Seeker Nation. What's up? My name is Mark, and I'm your co-host. The other co-host on top of the other side is Jack Kelly. Jack Kelly, of course, is founder of Recruiter.io, and also and say hi there, Jack.
Hey, and senior contributor Forbes and head of compliance search group. And
Yeah.
Dyson is the #1 podcaster in the job space. I think he's ranked #1 by a survey and study that we just did. And yeah,
I'm very flattered. Thank you, Jack. And we're bringing on from myperfectresume.com recently did a survey of about 200 respondents regarding, and they call it From Diapers to Meetings, Parenting Crisis in Time of Pandemic. Want to welcome to the show Jacques Buffett. How are you, Jacques?
Hi, I'm fine, thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so we're glad that you're here, and we're going to put you in the limelight here so that everybody can see you and get a hold of your answers. So, if you don't mind, we're going to ask a couple of questions, and I know you've got to run because you're always on the move here, from what I can tell from the times we email. The survey, if you can give us a brief overview of the survey and how that survey came about, and then some of the findings that you had from the survey.
Okay. Our survey was inspired by the particular challenges that parents have been facing during the pandemic, namely juggling the challenges of professional life and home life while being at home with the kids, and all of the other challenges that it involves in trying to have a family and a work life, doing it all remotely in the middle of a pandemic. And just to give you some idea of what we discovered quite a bit of difference in terms of the way the pandemic has affected men and women. We've encountered some generational splits as well. We've encountered different pressures that apply to different genders from the pandemic too. So it was really just...
Okay, Jack is having a little issues. I should mention that Jack is coming from Europe. He's not particularly in the U.S. There he is. Please go ahead and continue, Jack.
Yeah, and if I carry on, so for example, one of the more interesting findings we discovered was that in terms of feeling the pressure, men were certainly feeling the pressure when it came to putting in the hours and working effectively during the pandemic. Women were too, but when it came to feeling the pressure in terms of childcare responsibilities, it was definitely women who were feeling the pressure significantly more. So, for example, 3 times more women than men stated that they thought it was difficult to handle childcare responsibilities during the pandemic. We had more women who said that they have more childcare responsibilities due to the pandemic. Other interesting splits that we noticed, we talked to people. One of the most basic things we asked was asking whether they lost access to formal childcare services. And what was interesting here is that single parents were impacted significantly worse than people with a full family or a couple. So single parents, we were looking at something like 55% of them lost access to formal childcare services. So the likes of your daycare and after school programs and whatnot. But when it comes to full families, couples, that was only 34%. So we had a really significant split in impact there. And as with many other aspects of work, it's single parents who are losing out again. What else would you like to know?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had my mic muted because I was drinking. I didn't want water to go all over the place. Now, that you mentioned that men feel pressured at work, and women felt the bulk of the pressure at home. And then I saw from the survey that it was 74 versus 46%. Is there, we kind of know why, but basically worldwide, the construct is women carry, as far as when it comes to children and being a parent, they carry the weight mostly at home, while men still carry the weight or at least assume the weight And single parents have to assume both roles, and of course that has an effect on their mental health. Is that pretty much a good summation of what the result is of the study, of the survey, or could be made?
Absolutely, it is. But there's one important point that is absolutely single parents. They've got double the pressure, right? But what was really interesting is when we looked at in terms of people facing pressure from their career, it was actually pretty equal for men and women facing pressure from the workplace. But it was the women who also faced pressure to be an involved parent and to get involved in the childcare. So women are being crushed between those twin pressures. They've got that pincer that's been applying pressure to them throughout the pandemic. And it's not to say men don't have childcare responsibilities. Absolutely they do. And certainly that old stereotype of being the breadwinner, it still weighs heavily on men's shoulders. But from our statistics, it was the women who are being crushed by the twin pressures of work and childcare more so than men.
So, Jacques, is this study worldwide, or is that Europe or certain countries?
It was purely American working parents. We restricted our answers to working parents in the States.
But I'm sure that the same pressures would be worldwide, because that's how the world is kind of constructed for the most part. I don't think there's anybody leading as far as any breakthroughs in true equitable household chores, so to speak. But I think one of the challenges is in the States that we have witnessed is that women leaving the workforce because of those parental forces, as opposed to just being held to the pressure of it.
Yeah, I want to say, Mark, you're absolutely right. And Jack, I want to say there's a time period in a few months that 800,000 working moms decided, hey, I have to weigh childcare versus my job versus here in the States, in New York City and other places, they close the public schools. So then not only you have childcare, but you have to, help them out with their online classes, which is really across the board, what I hear, just really bad. So we're left with no choice. And it's so interesting because what it seems, I don't know how much you guys have been looking at this, but with the last job report, they were expecting to have 1 million new jobs added. It was only a fraction of that, a quarter of that. And it turns out a lot of the reasons why is that you have, Chuck, from the study you did, a lot of working mothers in particular, more so than men, pulled out of the job market. And they didn't come back because they said, hey, I really don't, I feel this is the right decision for me. I'm going to stay home. So these jobs went unfilled. And so I'm hoping that once the schools reopen, that people have more of a choice what to do. They still may, some may elect to stay home. Others may elect to go back to work. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I think that'll be super interesting to see how that plays out. And I think it's also worth emphasizing that certainly the impact was on women in terms of a lot of those job losses. But in particular, it was on women from ethnic minorities. They felt that really badly. And that's statistically proven. That's straight from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that they experienced the brunt of the pressure. And then when women have been going back to the workforce, it's underemployment too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they've been going back to jobs with less hours and they're less qualified for.
See, I think
Go ahead, Jack.
With Biden, with one of his programs, that they want to have more, I want to say childcare, but more, starting earlier. I know my brother, his daughter started preschool, and they had a regular school program for preschool, which freed up his wife to work and him to work. And also just, got a head start, starting early. So that's one of the lessons maybe we're taking out of the pandemic, that we have to really pay attention to childcare, because, it seems that a lot of folks too, were people who are, have parents who are maybe lower wage earners, they were depending on the schools for free lunch and things like that. So that when they did go to school, that was a problem too. So it kind of, it brought up all these issues that we had underlying, that brought to light and we have to do something about it, because if we want to get people back to work, and so they're empowered and they have choices, it's clear something has to be done.
Yeah, there was something about in when you mention minorities in those surveys, most of the surveys show that Black women particularly were facing the brunt of it, and also there's this. It also exposed this inequity to really quality health childcare in the midst of it all, because
Yes.
some people had to rely on the school at first, the public schools, which were inadequate to handle such kind of health care and give attention to the children that they really needed. And it really became more, it really exacerbated the burden that Chicago, particularly Chicago public schools, and probably a lot of others in the major cities, had to kind of fall in line. And the ability to be able to pivot when there is something that in the future, that also brings on the other challenge and other challenges that we could possibly talk about. But the other thing I'd like to jump to as well is that parenthood and productivity, 40%, 42% of the respondents had to reduce their working hours, which also added to particularly to women in particular. And if they didn't have adequate childcare, that also made it especially challenging for them.
Yeah, it's really like you definitely saw a K-shaped recovery where,
Right.
on the upper side, the Elon Musks and Mark Zuckerbergs of the world did phenomenally well, Jeff Bezos. And then on the downward slope, so many people just had such a rough go of it during the
Yeah.
pandemic.
Yeah, my sons grew up just in time, so to speak, right? Because during this time, if you have young children,
Yeah.
I can't imagine if you're a single parent having to do that and have to worry about a job. But the survey didn't outline, or did it outline, Jacques, how many felt that their jobs were being threatened because of the inadequacies in the response for childcare and being able to be productive in a remotely working environment?
Ooh, that's a good question. And that's not one that we actually asked directly.
Right. But I was just guessing because I don't know if there was a particular, if there was feedback you get outside of the surveys. Some people are able to write in what they're feeling, but maybe might be somewhere where that productivity isn't particularly talking about how productive they are at work, but the forces that are working against them to be even more productive.
Yeah, I think reading between the lines with some of our responses, though, I think what you're saying is
That's good.
certainly correct. So, for example, yeah, yeah, I can see that, for example, 57% of younger respondents under the age of 40, they thought the difficulties that they're facing in balancing working and parenting is going to slow their career growth. They were talking about impacts on work-life balances. So things like that, definitely, I think there's a potential career impact there as well.
Right. And one of the other things too, and we won't hold you too long, is in this. I thought this was interesting about the household chores, that almost three times women versus men strongly agreed that childcare increasing during the pandemic. Household chores got in the way of work. In other words, did you have a feeling like maybe that it was there any kind of feeling that maybe there might have been some game-changing career decisions made based on the chores, or maybe just a split of responsibilities? Maybe we got a better look in how the roles need to change as far as what we know as the traditional family, for order the family to really work.
I just think men need to be a little bit more clued up about how much their other half is actually doing, because
Yeah.
I make this mistake myself. I'll freely admit I probably do less than I think. When we think about the amount of work that women are actually doing in the background, it's incredible the amount of extra hours they're putting in, and we just need to do everything we can to help. Because we already talked about the fact it impacted women, the job losses more so than men. And that's exactly because they were taking on all those extra household chores and childcare, combined with the fact they were working in more precarious industries, sure. But I think the household chores and childcare, that played a big part too.
Yeah, because I know a lot of women felt the burden of having to even kind of reroute their career aspirations because of what everything kind of came to float up on the top is that they do way too much and we do far too less. Jack, did you
Yeah,
have
I think
anything
that
that you
that pretty
wanted to
much
add?
was it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jack, did you
yeah.
want to add anything?
I just, to punctuate your point, I put it on mute because my wife was walking the dogs to keep so I could do this in like 90 degrees weather outside. And so, yeah, so it's the division of labor really isn't evenly shared. And as we kind of mentioned before, these are things in a way, I hate to say a positive from the pandemic, but it is a positive because it makes people talk about it. Sometimes you need something to force a conversation where people just have to be open and honest about how things are done and what they how they should be done and how they can be done better. And
Yeah.
hopefully when we get out of this, it's not going to be perfect, but at least we'll head in a good direction.
Right. And I know that I have worked with in the past and also conversate now with executives who have had to re-examine their lives because they realize that they're away 12 to 15 hours a day. Many of the days when they were home, they got a chance to see everything that was going on in its full force and not always have the door closed because they're doing business and say, I need to rethink my career. I need to think the way the company is going to redo their career because this is too much for everybody to handle. And I think that was eye opening. Too bad it took the worst to kind of figure out what's going to be the best for the future. So, unless Jack, you had any more questions, I'm going to let Jacques run. We can continue the discussion here. Jacques, did you want to add anything else before you head on out?
Yeah, I wanted to add two things very quickly. If there's anyone listening
Sure.
who's struggling with childcare, because I think that was one of the big takeaways, there's two websites I want you to check out. One's childcareaware.org. That's
Oh, wow.
childcareaware.org. That will tell you about
Okay.
different programs that are available to help you with childcare in your local area. The other one is childcare.gov, and that's direct government advice about the programs that are available in your area. So anybody listening, check those out if you're struggling. They may be able to help. And
Yeah,
that's
I'm
it
going
from
to
me.
try to
Thank you.
put those. Yes, thank you very much, Jacques. I'm going to try to put that up on the screen so people can run away with that. Jacques Buffet again, representing myperfectresume.com. The survey included 200 professionals, got their ideas what happened during the pandemic when it comes to parenting, child care, in your career. Thanks very much, Jacques, for joining us.
It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yes, great to meet
You're
you.
welcome. It
Thank you
was a
very much for
pleasure.
joining.
Bye.
All right. All right, so I'm going to try to put that up on the screen, and that's childcareaware.org and then childcareaware.gov. So I'm going to try to put that up on the. So any afterthoughts, Jack, that you have regarding
Yeah,
that?
it's just a rough situation for everybody, and it's obviously some people have it way worse than others, and it's going to be interesting with this like new hybrid model that seems where everyone is coalescing. With that help
Right.
harder, does it? And I guess time will tell. If you have people in the office 2-3 days a week and home 2 or 3 days a week, in the long run, does that ease out things, or does that even make it harder because then parents have to juggle who's being home, who's going to be in the office, how does that work?
Right.
And there's not a lot of talk about that too. It's more about, okay, here's the model, but then what does that mean for people individually? How they can cope, how they can juggle it? Because think about it. If you usually do something, let's say you need childcare.
Mm-hmm.
You say, okay, I need that person to come in, whether it's a relative, hey, I need grandma to come in and watch the kids Monday through Friday, or some outside help Monday through Friday. But if you're like, well, I need it Monday and Wednesday and then half a day Thursday, I just foresee still challenges existing for everybody. And that's in a perfect world. God forbid we have a resurgence or some other kind of event, and then all of a sudden there's, schools are closed again or what have you, then we're kind of back to where we started.
Yeah, I'm just concerned many times. You know, we can't have universal everything. We can't have universal child care, but it is not such a bad idea that we, as a country, should look at more of how childcare really plays a part in being able to be productive in our careers and um, the way we figure things out. You know, it's too bad that is you know men have gone about and have conquered the beast and have been able to beat their chests, have not been as apathetic and or empathetic and as willing to to understand what the burden really is. If at anything, at least we should be able to give credit. That's the least, but we know we need to do more coming in the future. So when the bottom does fall out, we're there. So if we could, I went ahead and put the childcareaware.org, and I also put the /free assistance spite. Hopefully that'll help some folks
Mhm.
in the long term. But in the meantime, we're going to just go ahead and try to move on to the next topic. I definitely want to move towards your article, Jack, recently that you mentioned. Well, let's before that, let's talk about the TikTok job site first, as one of
Like
your
a little
articles.
less somber, right? A little bit, which is a nice segue.
You're right. Yeah, really.
Right?
It's like being slapped in the face, and then, oh yeah, how's the weather?
Yeah,
So
no, so I like that. That's a good transition. So
yes, so we'll go something lighter. Go ahead and give us
I
the
gotta tell you,
1-2s and all that.
I've been on TikTok a lot lately, and it cracks me up. I mean, it really there are a lot of creative people on there,
Hmm.
a lot of entertaining clips, a lot of also a lot of kind of weird nonsense. But that comes with anything. Um, and
Hmm.
the fact that TikTok is going to put together this job board, and it's catering to more the Gen Zs, the younger generation. They're about 18 to 22, 24-ish.
Hmm.
And instead of resumes, or they could send resumes, but they could send videos of themselves from jobs, which I kind of love when companies start thinking outside of the box and try different things. I know we talked about in the past where LinkedIn has LinkedIn covers. I forgot what's it called, covers or LinkedIn stories, where they're going to roll out. I don't know if they even rolled it out because I haven't seen anyone use it yet. Where it'd be like a 20-second video, kind of like a little pitch for yourself, who you are, what you're looking for. And so I'm a fan of that because I think the more you could show who you are, what you're about, what you have to offer, it makes it better for hiring managers, HR people, recruiters to get a sense of you as a person, as a candidate. So if TikTok is able to have, videos sent over to their clients, if the jobs themselves could be a little bit more interactive, like if you could put a job description where they could show, hey, this is what it's like to work at this company, and you see the people working there, you see the headquarters, you see how they're interacting with each other. Wow, I think that's, I'm not going to say it's a game changer, but man, that would take us in a really good place where it won't be so kind of conservative and stodgy the way it kind of is now, because a lot of things haven't changed in 10, 20, 30 years.
I'm sorry. As a recruiter, yeah, I slipped on that one. As a recruiter, though, wouldn't it drive you mad to try to recruit? I mean, basically, TikTok, you have about a minute to really do whatever you're going to do, or relay some content, or give out some information. Is that going to be recruiter friendly, you think?
For me, it would, because I just get a sense of who the person is. You know,
Hmm.
the same way a resume, I'm not going to completely make a whole judgment on somebody because you want to talk to them, you want to meet them, you want to have a conversation, you want to get to know the person to get a full picture. And in the interview process, they're going to meet with a whole bunch of other people to get a feel. So the video will be the starting point, but you get a sense. So if you see a person, let's say they could clearly articulate an elevator pitch in that 30 seconds. Wow, that's great. Then you're like, I'm sold. Wow, I know all about this person, who they are, how they come across. They come across enthusiastic, motivated, smart, articulate, and then let's say their resume is attached, or with LinkedIn, with TikTok, you've been on TikTok, you see they point to stuff, so it'll be like,
right.
they'll have the resume here. You point, here's a bullet point, here's a bullet point. So that's cool. That makes sense. So then you have a good set, and then if you feel that person is right for your role, then if I contact them, then I feel I know him or her already, and that's half the battle. So now it's more like confirming, oh, okay, they really do know this stuff. They're really good at it. They're very appropriate for the job I'm recruiting for.
Yeah, there's going to be some creativity. I could see that being a plus. I think, though, I think those there are coaches and career coaches who may think that is just for the young people. And now I've seen older people jump on and get into the act. I think also kind of climbs into the other discussions that we had about video, that people will be seen as being older and it might disqualify them. I'm just wondering how much energy would come across in that particular moment for recruiters to actually have the same kind of reaction they possibly could. I mean, I'm about video. I think older people should use video. I think that you can weed out the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, as far as employers. And especially if you could show that you can follow trends, that means you're willing to be flexible in the way that you not only can present yourself to coworkers, but also their clients.
Yeah, it can be a great equalizer, Mark, because let's
think
say
so.
let's say you're someone in their mid 60s, and might be, and I'm let's say I'm interviewing the person, and there's this unconscious bias or not so unconscious bias. Oh, this person's age, so maybe they can't do this, or maybe they're this way. Now, if they do a video that just knocks your socks off, wow, you're like, wow, I'm a jerk for thinking that. What's wrong with me? This
Right.
So I think people could use that to really say, hey, I know what you're thinking, Jack. You're thinking because, I'm this age, I'm not going to do this, or I'm going to boss people around. But wow, just the opposite.
Right.
Too, Mark. I wonder what I would love to see, what I think would be phenomenal, and I think would be very fair for jobs, if the managers and the people that you would interview with and other key personnel would also be able to have videos, so you can know what you're dealing with. Because why does it always have to be one-sided? If let's say you or I were the managers, wouldn't that be fair for a job seeker to see us give a little spiel about the job? Okay, hey, here's the job, here's this thing you'll do X, you'll do Y, you'll do this, you'll do that, the other thing. And then you can kind of tell, hey, yeah, that person, he or she seems like a good boss or a good manager. This person sounds empathetic, they sound caring, they sound motivated. Or the opposite. What if you have these managers who are just going through the motions? You need to do this, and you have to do this, and this is what you got to do. And they're like, oh my God. Why did you interview? I just saved a whole lot of time and energy because this person, I would never work with this kind of person. So that'd be amazing. Like, I don't know if it'll happen, but that'd be awesome if you could flip tables, especially if you start getting a war for talent and it's harder to find,
Well,
it puts the burden on them.
Well, that's funny you should mention that. I was reading just where Bank of America was planning to increase their pay, their bottom line pay. Now, Chase was kind of out in front, but apparently Bank of America has made a very clear plan for 2025 for the minimum wage for them to have, I think they said $20 or $25 an hour, if I'm not mistaken. So, I think there's going to be this exchange where I think it is fair. And I think the war for talent is going to be a very serious one, as not only as more people have defined how they'll be able to work and where they're able to work, but also how equitable it's going to be for an employee and for any employee, no matter what walk of life they come from, depending upon the industry. But ultimately, I think that there's going to be a dual so to speak, and that the younger people are going to be able to have a choice because they're making choices already. And pretty much a lot of the corporate America is thinking young. They naturally are looking for the young talent, and they're looking for the ways that they can leverage technology to appeal to that young talent. And why not TikTok? There are some companies already on TikTok. Maybe they're selling their product that way. But then when you throw in the mix that there are companies that will also start appealing, saying that we're really that cool company that you really want to work for. We're doing this, aren't we? And that's a fair estimation and how people, if I was somebody older, I would want to try to work for somebody like that because because there's synergy. I would have the experience and I have the flexibility. I'm able to show that I'm able to adapt to technology in the same vein that the company would say, hey, we like people who are forward thinking and progressive in their approaching with their career.
Yeah, it would be nice because you could get a feel for, hey, am I going the right direction? Is this the right company for me? Is this the right firm? The right people? How do they, it'd be great even to see them interact with each other. Do they get along?
Yeah. Yeah. We absolutely would. We'll come back to this, but I do want to talk about something that's kind of related and that we'll spend a bit of time on because I know this is one of your favorite strengths. What are recruiters struggling with this week, this month, or maybe this year in the pandemic or coming to the end? More or less, like where do they see job seekers? What's good? What's bad? What are you seeing?
One of the biggest things I see is this. There's definitely a gap between the job seekers and the companies. I think on the job seekers, a big thing is this. We're still in a pandemic, even though I think we could all agree we're kind of getting out of it and everything
Right.
looks good. But
Mhm.
we're still in that, and still have to be careful. So you have
Mhm.
who are after a year plus, it's hard to shake it off. You're still a little leery, you're still a little worried. So to move,
Mhm.
they're asking for a premium because they're feeling, hey, I could see, you know, things are risky. We learned a lesson over the last year. You can't just say, oh, all right, now everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be wonderful because we got a big punch in the face that, no, things could be really, really bad. So if I'm going
Mhm.
to leave, let's take a person who's working. If I'm going to leave my job, I want to make sure I get a huge premium for it and I want to keep working remotely because otherwise I'm just going to stay. Then you have the companies, and I'm generalizing here, it's not all
Right. Right.
companies that are still acting as if, everybody's groveling for a job and they'll take whatever lowball scraps of offers you want to give them. So I notice, and again, just generalizing, companies have these ridiculous asks about what they want from a candidate that's very unreasonable, and the compensation doesn't match it. So then you get this big chasm between the two. And to throw also on top of it, instead of realizing and waking up and saying, wait, it changed, it's not so easy to hire people anymore. There's not as many unemployed as there were before. So we have to be more competitive. And for the interview process, we have to move it forward more quickly. But that's not happening. You'll get someone who goes for first interview, maybe they get ghosted and don't even hear back. Or goes to recruit myself and just like, don't get back. They'll go on a few interviews, nothing. They'll go on one interview and then they say, we love you, we love you, we love you. And then time goes by, nothing happens. And maybe 3 weeks later, they'll call you back. So it seems that on the company side, they're not adjusting to where things are going. They're not feeling the need to really do right by the job seekers, to move things forward, to be with the job orders and the job
Mhm.
descriptions to make it fair in terms of the compensation. And then on the job seekers, to be fair to them, they're still a little nervous and still a little worried. So if they move, they want to make sure they get paid well for taking that risk of being the last one in. You know how it is. You always want your last one in, first one out. So
Right.
nervous about that. Then also you're a little nervous too if you're going to go and get a new job working remotely for the time being. It's awkward. so it's sometimes if you have a decent enough job, let's say you call me and I might say, you know what, Mark, the job sounds great, it sounds awesome, but we're heading into the summer and I'm going to work from home still. And you know what, I'm going to wait till September. Things, schools are open, things will change. Let's talk September and then we'll take it from there. It's just too easy for that to happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple of thoughts I have in that. And to me, one is after each recession that we had, and we can safely say it was not only a pandemic, it was a recession as well.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if we can compare it to the Great Recession of 2008, but we can say that it definitely had a worldwide ripple effect where everybody was affected. That essentially it becomes a job seeker's market. Eventually, and this time it came along a whole lot quicker than it
Yeah.
did from the last great recessions, because really you had people with doctorates working at McDonald's and adults wanting to work the 3 to 11 shift because because that's what the kids were at
Yeah.
McDonald's, right? So we saw that shift. This time they're saying nope, that's all right. We are, I'm good for right now because I'm getting that little stimulus, and that seems to be working out quite fine. Now, I hope that we talked about this before. I hope that people are taking it and doing it for the right reasons, but I think ultimately people are in this box that we'll put it this way. Employers seem to become very tricky after each recession. The ask seems to go up, that they want more from their candidates than they asked before the recession, because we're going to let you work from home now. We want all these different things. It's like, but that's all. That seems to be the knee jerk reaction from employers in general. There's some that have gotten smarter and have been more and have been more of a leadership role. Like we take the bigger companies, they've been afforded to do this, but they've been able to say, hey, we're all going to be remote for the next couple of years, and we're going to be cool. And then when everybody comes in, that's the way we're going to work. And job seekers will flock to that. But ultimately, I think that, is sort of like, if I beat my chest hard enough and stand my ground, that maybe people will come to their senses and jump on board. And this particular time is not the case, as we begin to see, because I think people have become a little bit smarter, say maybe I should invest a little bit more in my career advancement. And we can make all the assumptions, we really don't know. But I think that people have definitely gotten the economics part of it right, is that why would I work for somebody for less money than I'm making now?
Yeah, so that last one we talk about, I see that there's a rational decision if you think about it. If you or I had to go to a warehouse and be schlepping around these, heavy boxes, putting them on trucks, getting them off trucks, and all that, or you're going to be home collecting unemployment, and it's the same, or maybe even more when you factor in all the stimulus checks, and worry about contracting COVID because you're on top of people all day long and delivering stuff to people all day long. It's a rational decision to say, hey, I'm going to wait it out and collect my, unemployment. And it's easy to point down and say that person's lazy. But you know what? We do the same thing with companies where we bail them out. You mentioned the financial crisis. The same banks that blew up the whole economy and blew up people's 401k plans. Remember back then they started calling them 201ks because you just crushed people. So when we bail them out, that's that's more than unemployment insurance. You really took these that messed it up again. So we do it across the board, and so
we do.
Why people make those decisions. However, I think what will happen too on the positive side, once as the economy, and I think also the economy heated up much faster than people predicted. It's once, in my own opinion, once you saw the vaccinations really just ramp up, it seemed the whole mood changed. It seemed like, wait a minute, I think the perception of people became, oh, wait, we can get out of this. I think there's a whole section of I'll just talk about our country, because it better than other places, where I think there's a perception like, oh my God, we're never going to get out of this ever. This is horrible. And then when they started all these, literally now millions and millions of people getting vaccinated, Like, huh? And then you see the cases go down, the deaths go down, all that. Like, oh my god! And then the states, the New York and California that were really draconian in terms of putting risk restrictions, lifted it, and then they came back to work and everything was okay. So you got this snowball effect where all of a sudden the economy is good, more jobs are created, more opportunities are created. And to be fair to what we talked about earlier, I think a lot of people couldn't get their minds around it, that it changed like that. So like when I mentioned earlier about the hiring managers and taking their time, I think a lot of people still can't, it's like a cognitive dissonance. They can't really get their mind around, oh wait, we're not still in the teeth of this pandemic. It's different, it's changed, and I got to change according with it. And same thing with job seekers, where they still may be afraid to make that move, but not really realize, wait, it's not as bad as it was. So,
Well, so in your estimation, how will recruiters go about recruiting talent a little bit differently now that they know they kind of know the hand that's being shown or the hand that's being dealt, as far as how people or what people are actually responding to, as far as them saying no, that's okay. I mean, there might this argument like in your field, there probably is not that kind of this not that kind of action that's going on, but in other fields where they are dealing with recruiting for, let's say, customer service reps or this people in the service industry, they're reaching out to those people in that particular field. Do you feel like that there might be some challenges for them to reach out to those in mind,
yeah,
keeping in mind the economics?
it's very different. So for the former, what I would do is manage expectations of hiring managers and HR, talking
Mhm.
exactly what I was mentioning to you. Here's the environment, because and to me, I'll tell them I'm saying this not because I'm such a saint or whatever. I just want to be fair and share what I know so you understand what's happening. So if you don't see resumes right away, you understand why that is.
Mhm.
With respect to kind of the people working at restaurants, hotels, supermarkets, delivery people, at this stage, yeah, because it was almost like the flip was switched. Everything is reopened. The demand is there big time. I think there's even more demand than ever because you had all this pent up demand. So people who didn't go out to eat for months or maybe at all, people who maybe didn't even send out for food, people who didn't go to the supermarkets, all of a sudden you're descending on it. So all these
Mhm.
demands and having a hard time finding people. And that's why, as you pointed out, B of A is raising their money, their starting wages and minimum wage. McDonald's did the same thing. Chipotle is doing
Mhm.
it. The state of Connecticut, is giving $1,000 if you get a job. So to 10,000 people, if you get a job and get off unemployment, they're going to give you $1,000 bonus. Amazon is also giving, increasing their starting wages, giving bonuses, giving better benefits. So you could see how, and it's interesting because I wrote about like, a state, Amazon, McDonald's, B of A, all in different sectors, but all doing the same
Mhm.
thing when it comes to certain, kind of, I don't want to say low wage because I don't know if that sounds right, but people who are working in certain sectors, yeah, it's actually reminiscent of before the pandemic. Because if you remember, Mark, right before the pandemic, we had super low unemployment and there was war for talent. And it was so hard to find people. And it seems like we're going right. It's crazy. It's like we're almost returning to where it was. It's it's so hard to comprehend that.
It's like we didn't leave except for the exhaustion of the not
It's
being
so
able to be sociable and not being able to go about life as we know. Other than that, it has actually turned back to being a job seeker's market in that
yeah.
particular sense, which means that in as far as a job seeker, that there's going to be more competitions for the jobs because then everybody's seeing that they're
All of a
going,
sudden, right? They
now
wake
I
up and go,
can change
"Whoa! I
read.
mean, look, yeah,
And
yeah."
right, and
Yeah.
so if you're working and you're looking to change, you actually have an advantage, and that is that an employer is going to look at you a little bit more favorably still because you're working. as opposed to somebody who's not employed. And you're going to be able to have a much smoother transition than somebody who doesn't have a job that particular time, which means if you're not working, you've got to appeal. You've got to be creative and also think a little bit more strategically. Is that how can I get in front of someone before somebody who's changing a career actually gets before someone?
Yeah. Yeah, but if you're inclined to look for a job or you're in between jobs, yeah, now's the time to just get out there. Whether it's you're working at McDonald's or B of A or anywhere else, because it's I've seen it and I feel it that even though, as we mentioned, it changed, people are still kind of hesitant. So the people who are hesitant are going to stay on the sidelines, and I understand it makes sense. So the ones who get off the sidelines and get into the game, they're going to have a better chance because, as you put it, Mark, you're absolutely right. Because then they're going to get ahead of the crowd and they're going to have more opportunities to choose from. And after a while, when everyone wakes up and goes, "Oh wait, everything shifted," it's like in the stock market where all of a sudden you realize, "Oh my God, but it's too late because everybody was in already." Just like
buy, right?
And then it's too late because everyone bought already. So you're coming into the end, and you can see like just what happened with Bitcoin, and now Bitcoin has been dropping because I guess you're the last one in, and now you're suffering.
Yeah, I think those who are changing careers, if you have a premonition even that you're going to change careers next year, I think now's your time to kind of jump and test the waters to get ahead of the game. Because not only that I think that the opportunity is going to be there, but I think the cash will actually be there because they're going to the cash is going to be, the cash is going to be there, and because you're working, because you even if you're even not, you don't think that you're ready, I think you should test it anyway, because also in that war for talent, companies are able to think and say, hey, maybe we can offer more training and more career advancement to lure. And so if you're not thinking that way, I think you start to make that pivot right now.
Absolutely. Mark, I've seen signs from McDonald's saying, "Hey, we'll pay $50 just to come in to interview." Just interview. Then we talk about B of A. So turn back the clock just a month or two. I'm losing track of, it's COVID time. I'm losing track of when it happened. But, if you remember, you had those people, those young bankers at Goldman Sachs saying, "Hey, you're working this 100 hours a week. This is terrible." And then it turns out banks were doing the same thing. So what do? Like some mid-sized bank were giving the bankers Peloton bikes and subscriptions. They were giving double-digit, $10,000 plus bonuses. They'll give raises because they realized, hey, if we don't take care of them, they're going to just go somewhere else. And
I think they were also saying that, oh yeah, you could take at least one full day off and don't report anything.
So someone's a little toned down. Some, a little they don't completely get it. It's like, see, that's another thing what you're seeing too. I'm glad you brought it up because this is like, I've been writing. I love when these articles come out, and it's so wrong of me to love these things because it's so cringy. So it's like with Goldman, and you're terrific company, great people, brilliant people. But one of the answers is we'll give you Saturday afternoon off. That's like, really, dude.
And I imagine if you're a young person on Wall Street, that might be a big deal that I can actually go and I don't have to check my phone for messages.
Right. But these guys aren't hurting because even though they're working a lot of hours, they're making like 100. These are young. You're talking about 23, 24, 25, 26.
Right.
Right. And they're making it like 150 base plus 40,000 bonus. So you know what? So whoever's watching this and listen, you can't cry for them too much and then they also have the ability to make like 10 times that, in not too distant future. So here's what also they're doing. If you don't want me bringing them up, it's so crazy when you talk about tone deafness. So the Washingtonian, which is, I guess, like the New York Magazine for Washington, where current events, but like where to eat and where to go out and that kind of stuff. So the CEO said basically, if you don't if you want to stay remote, I don't have some good things to tell you. You might not come back, or I'm going to make you a contractor. And she wrote this in an op-ed piece in the Washington Post. So imagine if you're a staffer reading about it or seeing it online, where it's like a thinly veiled threat. Hey, if you don't,
Hmm.
you know, all of a sudden that means you get no. If you go a contractor, that means you're not going to get benefits. You're not going to get days off. You're not going to get vacation days. So some of these companies still like they don't get it.
Well, there go out in the NDA will be, tossed in or tossed out depending on how you look at it. Or the non-compete agreement is that you've really tainted the pool
It's
of
and this is what I mean.
candidates.
And you know what's more? This is what I think. I think a lot of like there are people who just don't. They're not seeing like sometimes you can't read the room and you don't realize things have shifted and you got to
Hmm.
shift with it. And let's be frank. The conversation with Jacques, if it was 10 years ago, we probably would have been horsing around with that conversation. Okay, let's be real.
Yes, we would have.
I mean, I'm not
Yes.
proud of that. You know what I mean? And but guys being guys, we would probably have made some dumb, dopey jokes and kidded around.
Hmm.
Fast forward to now, no, you don't. You read, you know what I mean? You evolve, you change. You change the way you think and act. But I notice like places don't. Like the person who the CEO of the Washingtonian didn't read the room, didn't get this is not what you do.
Right.
This is not
Right.
the guy from WeWork, right? The new CEO. I can't recall
Hmm.
his. So basically, he said something. I'm going to paraphrase. He didn't say it in this way, but he said basically, "Hey, if you're a winner and you're a smart, motivated person, you're going to come back to the office, and if you don't, you're a loser." He didn't say those words, but that was kind of the tone.
Yeah, WeWork is the company that's been losing they got
Millions,
evaluated mega high, and then next thing you know, so we're broke. It's like,
right?
and then you make a threat.
This is a new
It's no
CEO.
different,
Yeah,
and this is no different than somebody who's working and sees people going out the exit door, and they're willing to ask for a raise. It's like, come on, dude,
it's
really?
it's like it's this is like you would think. Now he misspoke. It's clear he's a bright guy. He's a smart guy. He's a experienced
From what we could tell so far.
executive. But it's and I get it. Listen, he wants people to return to the office because that's his business. If people don't return to
Yeah.
an office, his is a co-working space. If you don't return, he's out of work. His company's out of and as you point out, the company's in trouble. But you gotta understand the world we're in now. You say that it just alienates people, and that
Not only that, yeah, and you mentioned that, and that's probably the main point here is that you're not just getting possible future employees. Also, you taint your customer base as well
yeah,
because
yeah.
people respond to they're doing slavery. I'm not going to support that that
Because then
company.
you get that reputation, and like it's just
Yes.
hard to
It's like
shake it off.
why would I pay you to abuse your employees?
Yeah,
Oh, that's kind of they're forgetting what world we live in. We
yeah,
live in a very transparent world, and what applies to you applies to me some way and somehow.
yeah.
So you get those who say, "Hey, that we're doing this to our employees. If they don't return to threaten," going, "You're threatening your workers. Why would I want to give my
Right.
money to that?" As opposed to Starbucks, who went ahead and say, "We're paying equity." And what happens? Two times their business. Oh, and we're giving them stock options. We're teaching them diversity, inclusion. We're trying to make those conversations out in the open. We're giving more younger people a chance to have managerial and team lead positions. And all these things is like, yes, 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 I'll support that, even if that coffee is now $6 instead of 5.
I went. You know what? I went with my daughter today. Just as a side note, $17 for like coffee. I don't even know what we got. We got like nothing. But it's
Yes,
nice. I like going there. This is sometimes you go ones that are all crowded and everything's not. So
right.
it's but it's so interesting how you have to be so sensitive to all these things now. It's a different world. It's a different game, especially for executives.
Yes,
Because
yes,
as you pointed out, if you say this, it's going to linger on in social media. Let's take that, with that Washingtonian. Well, like if I was an advertiser, I'd feel uncomfortable advertising because they're going to think, "Why, Jack? Why are you supporting them? Are you? You know what I mean?"
yeah.
It's you have to be so careful.
Well, think about it. How did the Washington football team got their name?
Yeah.
They got a threat from FedEx saying that no more Redskins. You got to change all that. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, there was no buffing, but for years he was willing to box with anybody, fight with anybody,
Right.
even
Right.
if it was Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson in the ring. That he wasn't going to change that name. Well, somebody with
Yeah.
the fund said that you're not going to do that
Yeah.
anymore, and you said okay, and then you ran into your corner. You changed. All of a sudden, you got real creative. We're saying we're now the Washington football team.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's
so,
where you end up.
yeah. And it's interesting. Give you an example, like Google. They're so smart. They have, and I think we talked about this before. They
Hmm.
have this setup that's just so awesome. And they're purposely doing it because they know that they're going to attract, these young Gen Zs and younger millennials, and because it's such a cool environment, and it's way better than being home with your parents or being in a small cramped apartment 24/7 just looking at a computer screen. So they're kind of getting it. They're like, okay, how can we get the best of brightest? Well, we're going to have the just awesome environment, super cool, you name any kind of amenity, and not only that, but we have that marquee brand name too.
And we're paying, and we're
So
and we're providing certifications for career
yeah,
advancement. We'll encourage you to advance. They have their own career coaches.
and that's why
Okay,
companies
so
have to compete. They have to so like when you now have a company that's going to drag. I saw someone wrote on Twitter. I apologize, I don't know the guy's name, but it was really great because it was like one of those me company, and it was basically saying, hey, like company, hey, I thought this part you said your candidate wanted the job. Me, yes, she did. Then
mhm.
she's why did she take it? And then he goes into, well, because you couldn't make a decision. You wanted to, you spent a month because you wanted to see other people first and test and see and compare and contrast. You had to wait for this person. You made a wait for this person, so on. And meanwhile, the competitors out there were like, you know what? We met this person. She's awesome. She's great. We're not afraid to make a decision. We pulled the trigger. We hired her.
Yeah,
And I think that's what's going to have to start happening with these companies, that they have to wake up and realize, wait, we can't be jerks to the employees. We can't be rude. We can't be dismissive. We can't threaten them, because if we do, and all these other companies are going out of the way to take care of them, we're just going to fall behind. And the ones who take care of it are going to win. And then especially
yeah,
up against Amazons that have like war chests. So what else can you do if you're up against like Amazons and these big, Google and Microsoft? You have no choice but to just show the love and show the compassion and show the empathy, because otherwise, why would they go to you? They're going to go to these other folks. So
yeah.
kind of game changer things that you see percolating, that are
Yeah. So the company that's listening the most and show that they're listening and responding are the ones who are going to win the day.
yeah,
And and that's the new marketing. Really, let's make this
that's a
clear.
good point.
And
That's
nobody's
a
not
good
going.
branding. Yeah,
It's a great brand, and it's a great way to say I'm hearing all these things. And you know what? The employees are responding. You look at Microsoft. You ever looked at LinkedIn? I'm connected to several people. They're saying nothing but proactive good things about Microsoft. I mean, there's nothing more real and best recruiting tool than having a real live employee that you may personally know, or people that you're connected with say that I love working with them. This is why they are, and they're actually being brand ambassadors,
that's
and
smart.
without provocation at all.
That's
They're
smart.
going about and they're saying they're having a good time. They're showing their lives, and people are going, "Gosh, how can I be
You know,
down?"
it'd be interesting too, Mark, if they would do that on TikTok too. So imagine if you have your
Yes.
forever and you're just showing a really fun meeting, and doing all those things. Even more so, it makes like, wow, I want to work here. This is fantastic. This is great.
Yep, yep. And it's not under the old guard where people have been doing it for years, mind you, that people have been going on. But the company now is putting the money where their
Yeah,
mouth is. They're saying you can work from home and we're all going to be working to 2023. that you got my attention. What else is there? And you see the
Exactly.
employees, you start
Yeah.
to now you're thinking, how can I get a referral? Let me watch these people and see how I can reach out to them, and then I can eventually make my way. What do they have that I need, and what do I have that maybe they need that I can use to make myself attractive? Is
Yeah.
that kind of thing? Is that kind of intelligence that's going to win job seekers the jobs that they really want. It's not going to be still praying and spraying. It's not going to be beg until you get a job. It's not going to be that you hope to be chosen. You've got to start taking the actions now, especially when we're in this corner turn that we're in, where the company's just as responsible as showing their hand as well as you showing yours eventually.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's really exciting to me. It sounds
Yeah,
like you
I
feel the
think it
same way.
is.
There's just so many changes, and it can be just so good for everyone. It can really
Yes.
everybody, and that's just terrific. So more jobs, better way of working. Think about this. I'll leave this last thought too. When you as
Mhm.
you start this stuff. So imagine
Right.
you're this guy who grew up in North Dakota, and you have a lot of family there, and you just loved it. But you're a software engineer, and you feel you have to be in Silicon Valley, and then you find out, wait, I don't. I could go back to North Dakota and be with my family where I really love and I love the outdoors and get paid the same too. Because
Right.
some companies when they say you can work remotely, they won't pay you the same way they'll pay like if you still were in Silicon Valley or New York. They're going to pay you way less. But if they pay you the same in Silicon Valley and you're in North Dakota, you're like, my God, I love this company. I'm never going to leave it. I'm going to do whatever it's in. You're
Right.
going to have so energized, motivated employees because they're so appreciative that they're going
Yeah.
to work really super hard.
Yes, they are. I'm gonna let you have the last point on this, and we should go ahead, and we've been here a little bit more than an hour, and I
Yeah.
know people got to go back to work.
Oh,
We
good
didn't
talking
take
to
any.
you.
There's the dog. It's just like you got to start having some ducks around the house because you got the cat and the dog. But yes, come back next week. We got Ed Hahn going to be with us. So we'll be talking all things recruiting. I know that's going to be your kind of show. So we're going to get the real
Awesome.
lowdown what recruiters really want.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Join me on Friday as we have the modern job search checklist. Thank you very much. We're streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Oh,
Join us at any of those platforms. Feel
you
free
know,
to share
watch
the
your
show.
Sirius XM show though.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun. Look
Yeah.
for my posts on
That's,
all of those platforms
yeah.
regarding the Sirius XM. I think that worked out pretty
That was
well.
awesome. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, great. Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
In the meantime, thank you guys. Job Seeker
Take care.
Nation, have a great week and go out and get it.
Take it. Take care, Mark. Bye,
All
everyone.
right.